we come into this world pretty much as there's this part of us, right? Like this deep, like you can call it like our spirit, our soul, however you want to call it. But there is this part of us that is this beautiful, bright, divine aspect of us that we come with from the get-go, like from when we are very, very little, when we're just a baby, right? And this perception of ourselves with this perception of others is very like what I would call like our soul, right? Is very divine, is very bright, is very connected to goodness, to the universe, to this magic. It's just like this beauty, right? And in the IFS world, they call this the authentic self. It's like the self. It's kind of like who we truly, truly are in our deep core. But oftentimes what happens is like when we come into this dynamic of our family, right? That is like these different puzzle pieces, and we need to figure out how to fit into this picture, all these puzzles connected to each other, right? We need to figure out how to fit into that. What happens is like we create like this like outer layer of ourselves to kind of survive, or sometimes to feel loved, right? Because this authentic self of who we are, I believe that this self, right? The authentic self, this bright, magical soul that we are, and each one of us is unique, knows deep down that the purpose of our life, the purpose of us being here in this planet, the purpose of us coming into this family, the purpose of everything is just love, right? And that's what I am in my authentic and unique way, but that's also what you are in your authentic and unique way. So we know that the deep, profound purpose of everything is to experience love, to feel love, right? To receive and give love to other people and receive love from other people. But then what happens when we come into this kind of like, it's like a matrix, right? Like into this game of, we come into this reality where like our parents are not really perfect and there is like dysfunction, right? Even though logically and like consciously we're not aware of what's really going on, our need for connecting and expressing this love, this like self need, is so profound, is so ingrained and so deep that we as children, what we do is like we would do anything to kind of connect with that purpose, even if that anything is not really connected with who we are authentically. It's not really connected with the self, right? So we kind of like shape ourselves to be able to fit into this picture, into this combination of puzzles. And we create like a layer, like an outer layer, to protect this part of us that is pure, that is divine, that is so sensitive, that is so vulnerable. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that we unfortunately kind of like have to do to be able to survive, and to be able to be loved, right? The problem with this experience of being loved, right? Like from this outer layer, right? This way that we're showing up is that it's not authentic, right? It's not really, really, really who we are deep inside. It's kind of like a puzzle piece. It's like a mask, like a persona, right? And oftentimes I think that this outer layer, right, like this puzzle piece that we have to be in the outside to be able to survive in the world, to be able to fit into our families, to be able to create this false sense of being loved, right? Or being able to survive within our dynamics, because sometimes the dynamics within our families can be very unhealthy, can be very damaging, can be very, hurtful. I forgot what my point was now. yeah, like this outer layer, it protects us in a way. So it does have a purpose, and its purpose is good, and it comes from a good place, and it actually, it works, if that makes sense. But also it creates like a void within us, because we grow up and then go around the world, like just showing up in life from this puzzle piece that we have to be, or this puzzle piece, like whoever I had to be, however I had to show up, what did I have to do, what did I have to say in my family to be loved, right? Or to survive within my family. And it's kind of like a program that we download within our systems when we're very little, and then it just stays running. And the program is there because at some point in time we needed that program to survive, right? To stay like alive, we needed that program. But then that program needs to be updated, and it stays running, right? So we go through our lives showing up like in our careers, in like a work environment, in romantic relationships and friendships, in all of these aspects of life. We're still showing up from this puzzle piece that we had to be when we were children to survive in our families. And I feel like from the perspective of IFS, like that outer layer that I'm talking about, this puzzle piece, is what trauma is, right? We believe that this shape is who I am in my core. Sometimes we can call this our personality, our character, and sometimes like there is this sense of like you can feel like you're broken, like there's something wrong with you. And I think it's not so much because deep down our true self is broken, because I think that part of us is never truly broken. It's like unbreakable. But it's like more like this, all these layers, right? Like this thick layer, or all these layers that like, it's like our shape. And we feel like we're broken because this shape, this mask, this character, this persona that I have to be to show up in the world, that I believe I still have to be to show up in the world, it's not truly who I am. And this persona, this character, this thing that I've created to survive in my life is broken. Because in a way, like it's not real. It's not who I am. So in a way, like this feeling of brokenness is kind of true. Like it's kind of true, but deep down, it's not truly who I am. And I feel like that's why we can perceive or sense this, this sensation of like feeling broken, or feeling like something is missing, like something is wrong, like something is not right, something is not working right inside, because it's not, right? So what happens in life, right? Like literally, right? Of like how this outer layer of myself shows up in the world is that we create kind of like characters or masks, if you want to call it like that, of who we are, of who we think we need to be loved. Feeling loved is a combination of feeling seen, being seen, right? And feeling seen, being heard, and being honored, right? So the only way that those things that can truly happen is if I am authentically myself. So, but within this dynamic of, dysfunction, we need to create these characters and these personas to be able to survive into this dynamic. Because funny enough, dysfunction works in a dysfunctional way, right? Like we use the word dysfunction, and it sounds like, it doesn't work. But actually, when there is dysfunction, within its dysfunction, it still functions. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope you understand what I mean. I hope we're connected and you get me. But like, there's some sort of functioning happening within a dysfunctional family or within a dysfunctional relationship. So to be able to function or to survive and to fit into the system, we need to create these characters and personas. And in IFS, they call this parts. because it's not truly who we are at the core. It's not the self. So I'm gonna use me as an example because we're gonna be authentic over here. Just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to use myself, use it as a real example. So part of me first, I grew up always feeling like I needed to be, like I'm the oldest sister, right? So growing up, my mom was, let's say that she was going through a lot and she wasn't able to be the most present and loving mother that I'm pretty sure she's capable of being because of her own struggles, okay? Her own personal struggles, okay? So my mom used to be very irritable and very like angry, and she would snap very quickly. Always growing up, like it gave me the feeling like she was a grenade. Like relating with her was like going into a field full of grenades, and I didn't know what grenade I was gonna touch and when I was gonna be bombed, right? So the way that the character that I developed as a child to be able to survive or thrive or connect with a mom like that is that I became a mom pleaser, right? I became always being hyper vigilant and trying to kind of like read my mom's mood and kind of like predict how, if she was gonna react or not. Because in my subconscious, if I was able to predict if she was gonna react or not, then I was able to keep myself safe, right? And protecting this self of me was the most important thing. So I became a mom pleaser, always trying to please my mom. And this became like an autopilot in me, just always pleasing my mom, being everything that I thought she wanted me to be, doing everything that I thought she wanted me to be, trying to always please her and make her happy. And this, as I grew up, right, I show up in the world thinking with this belief that the only way that people would love me or accept me is if I please them, if I make them happy, if I make sure that they like me, okay? So that turned into me being, or not me being, but this part of me being a people pleaser. Because with this belief that if I can please you, if I can make you happy, then I'll feel loved, right? The reality is like this people pleaser character persona part of me is not truly who I am. And that's why they call it a part, because it doesn't always show up in all relationships, but it often shows up, and it's kind of like this protective mechanism of like protecting myself from getting hurt. Of like, well, if I make you happy, if you like me, then you won't hurt me. Okay? That's like one of my parts. Another part of me is that I am the oldest sister, and it's also connected with my relationship with my mom. I loved my sisters so much, and I have so much love for them. And like myself, right? Like myself, right? Knew that I wanted to protect and love my sisters as much as I could. So a lot of times I kind of saw that my mom wasn't able to do that, you know, like give this nurturance or this protection that I needed so much from her. So I kind of like, because it's also, I wanted to be like, I also wanted to make her happy, right? And I wanted to be proud of me. I created this part of me that was like the caretaker, right? Of like taking care of my sisters. And even though that came from a place of, again, of love and of protection and survival, right? It created this part in me of like feeling like showing up in the world like a caretaker, like I have to take care of people. And in love and relationships and love, that's my role. Like if I take care of you, then you're gonna love me and you're gonna see how great I am, and then you're gonna accept me, and then I'm gonna feel loved and I'm gonna feel whole. And always taking care of people that it really wasn't my job to take care of them. Just like as a child, right? Like even though I was the oldest sister, and my position as an older sister is to be an older sister, but my position is not really to be a caretaker because I'm a child and I'm growing up. That's the responsibility of my parents, right? But again, like it's like within, sometimes there's like missing pieces in this puzzle, and we kind of mold ourselves to be able to fit into this piece, because there's a piece here that is missing, right? And lastly, the role that I needed, the part of me that I created growing up, just always feeling like my job as a child was to make my parents proud, you know? And I always grew up always liking, being really good in school, like really like learning. Like I was always like the top of the class. And a part of me, a lot of that came from because I just really enjoyed learning. Like I really enjoyed being a smart cookie. But I could feel like how much my parents would like really see me, right? When I got like a good grade on a test, or when my teachers would be like, oh my gosh, she's the best, she's the top of the class. When I would like do a performance, like there's like all these things that kind of like I would do from a place of like I wanted my parents to be proud. That more than anything, it was like I wanted my parents to see me, and I wanted them to like what they saw. So being always good, trying to be perfect. And that was also connected to like a perfectionism, like trying to be perfect, because I believe that, again, like my mom was really irritable and she was very violent and like, abusive growing up. So I felt like all this minds in this field, like I felt kind of like the minds would not go off as easily when I was doing something that took a lot of her attention. And those things were like school projects, getting A's, getting, gold medals about like different things, doing all this like school activities and all these things more from a place of like, I want to feel safe. Like I want to protect this self of me, but I want you to see me, and feeling like the only time that but the problem with that is that I felt like the only time that I deserved to be seen, or I was not deserved, but I was worthy of being seen and witnessed, it was if I was perfect, right? If I was the best, the top of the class, is that I was worthy of a good job or stuff like that. So the problem with that is that the way that I show up in the world is feeling like I had to be perfect. I had to be perfect in everything. I had to look perfect. I had to act perfect. I had to say the perfect thing at the perfect time all the time. Because if I didn't, then I felt like people would not love me. They would not see me. They would not, like I will not be loved. Like I want, like this belief of like, I am not loved unless I'm perfect. And that is really heavy to carry in life, because the truth is that no one is perfect, and life is imperfect, and we're imperfect, and flaws are part of being human. Kind of like, not like, it's kind of like perfectionism is kind of like a rejection of our humanness. It's like not accepting that we're human, and there's this divine part of us that is really beautiful, and I think the journey of life is connecting to that part more and more. But we're human and we're imperfect, and we're gonna make mistakes, and mistakes is part of life, and nothing is supposed to be perfect. And I feel like my journey of healing, it's been acknowledging these parts and acknowledging that they're not bad, that they're not trying to hurt me, even though they cause me a lot of pain, to be honest. That they're not here to hurt me, but they came. This was like kind of like a character made by a 6-year-old to survive, to fill the parts of my family that were missing, and to be able to fit into my family. Maybe now, as an adult, I don't need those parts anymore. And I can maybe sometimes really connect with myself and shed these layers that, even though they protected me for my majority of my life, and I am grateful to them, and I say thank you. maybe I don't need them anymore. And maybe it's time to really connect with my authentic self and experience life and show up in life and in relationships from this place of authenticity, vulnerability. And I think like from the IFS perspective, like that's what healing is. It's like when we're able to truly connect with the self. And something that I love about this perspective of IFS that I think it's so helpful is that it really separates, like we often have this perspective of like, oh, people are either good or bad, right? So when the way that we see the world is also how we see ourselves, and the way that we see ourselves is how we see the world. So if I see myself, right, and the world from this perspective of like black and white, like people are either good or bad, then when I make something wrong, then I believe that I'm bad. And that can create two extremes. Either it can create this shame spiral, right? That we just think like we're bad, we're terrible, we're not worthy, and all this stuff that really doesn't help us in any way, shape, or form. Or it creates this other extreme of rejecting and refusing really hard, accepting that we make mistakes and that we're human, which is also doesn't help us evolve. It doesn't help us grow. So I think the reason why I love the IFS perspective is that it identifies very clearly what the self is, what my authentic self is, right? That is goodness, love, light, beauty, all those things, and separates this character or this actions that a lot of times are attached to this character or this role or this part of me that is just really scared, that is just trying to protect myself, and it's not really who I authentically am. If we really think about like the times that we're really messed up in life, that we did something very wrong, very bad, and if we really see within ourselves, I think it's very clear to feel like, yeah, but that wasn't really me. Like that was this part of me that was trying to protect myself. I was trying to keep myself safe. I was trying to whatever, So I really love this perspective of like parts and like the self, because it really it helps us connect with the self part of us, like this good part of us, like our soul. And it identifies the parts of us that do a lot of stuff wrong and cause us a lot of suffering, and also sometimes suffering to other people. But it's not really who we are. It's like a part of ourselves. And like acknowledging this part and really becoming aware of it. And then from that point, I feel like we can make choices from an authentic place when we can see that part and we can acknowledge the part of us. Okay, so lastly, I would like to say that there is this book that I haven't read, but I will read, and I recommend you read, because every time I hear anybody talk about this book, they recommend it a lot, and it's like a huge thing within the internal family systems. I don't know if it's a foundation of the IFS mentality, but it's called No Bad Parts, and it's just about that. It's about like the different parts and how these parts are not bad, and how we created them to survive within our families. And I just love the title. Like it's not No Bad Parts. So I really recommend that. I will put the questions that I said about how to identify those parts in the description or somewhere to help you. And yeah, just ask yourself those questions and just sit in the question. Don't have to like get an answer immediately and figure it out immediately. Just sit in the question, and I think the answer will show up eventually. So that's it. So hope that helps. Bye.